Animorphs Book Club podcast.
It's radical.
Okay, time to start. Hello. This is an Animorphs book club, and I'm Mr. B Natural, and I'm a war prince, but I'm actually a woman.
She's a war princess.
No, I'm a war prince. I'm still a woman, though.
Wait, so what is it? What is the Animorphs Book Club?
It's a book club where we each read an Animorphs book, and then we talk about one Animorphs book a week or per episode, and we each talk about it. I'm a war prince because I read all the Animorphs books, and I know all the things that there is to know about Animorphs, mostly. And the other people are my arists, and they don't really know anything about the Animorphs books, but we are on book 6 now, so they know quite a bit now. They know 6 books worth of Animorphs.
I feel like you might want to go inside. These birds are getting louder.
Seriously? Come on, the birds are so... Everyone loves...
That's what it sounds like.
Everyone loves birds.
Yeah, that's really racist to Tobias.
Yeah. Are you saying you don't like Tobias just because he's a bird? Okay, introduce yourselves.
Alright, I'm better than you. Woo.
I'm mustard. Then you. Ooh.
I'm Stir.
And those birds you hear are Burger King. I mean Kurgerbing, who turned into a bird and doesn't know how to turn back, and he can't use telepathy over the internet, so he's just stuck like that for a little bit. I'm sure he'll be fine at some point, though. Don't worry about him. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Be happy for him and for all who fly free.
Yes, I'm happy. I'm certainly happy for him. This book, I love this book. It's my new favorite.
Wow, yeah, this book was pretty great. I don't know if it's my new favorite, but it was pretty great.
Yeah, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I think it was like the most flawless book.
It was definitely the one with the least flaws I can see.
Like the whole plot is it was a lot like like the thing that this, like, you were complaining about The Visitor and how, like, yeah, I have to agree that the first half of The Visitor doesn't really connect with the second half all that well, but this book was like it all somehow just it went together. It was like the first part led into the second part led into the third part led into the end. It was like, you know, that of course that's how it would happen. And there was this, and the author employed all these things. The author employed all these things to like keep the book like coherent, so that you knew that you were reading like the same book. Like if you tried to cut scenes out of this book and put them into different Animorphs books, like you'd be able to tell. Whereas I think with some of the books you could cut some scenes from them.
Message.
Yeah. Or The Visitor even.
Yeah, when I was reading the first half of this book, what came into mind was like, yeah, this is really solid. Like there's nothing like weird about it. There's nothing that makes me go, what is that? It's just very solid. The second half, I wasn't really thinking about it as much because I was a lot more like paying attention to the plot. Okay, the first half was good, but it like wasn't as interesting as the second half, I'd have to say.
The second half, like I was reading this book and I knew this is the book where Jake becomes a controller, and I was like 14 chapters in and Jake hasn't become a controller, and I was like, wait, do I have it wrong? Like, is this not the one where he becomes a controller? Like, how are they going to have enough room to interestingly explore that in like 8 chapters? But then they did, and I thought that they were actually like really well paced, even though he didn't become a controller until like something like 15 chapters in.
Yeah, I like after all that happened, like the book just ended. They didn't feel the need to have this huge, crazy scene at the end because like the whole like second half of the book was just Jake being a controller and dealing with it.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a good break because I was going to think, oh no, are all the Animorphs books going to be exactly the same? First start out with somebody testing out a morph, then they have a bunch of boring meetings, and then at the end of the book they get in a big fight scene. This book, I didn't really like that, so I'm glad that she changed it up a bit.
I will describe the plot of the book now.
Yes, describe the plot.
It's my turn to do that. I actually liked the recap in this book. The recap is told over Jake having a conversation with Tom, and it's framed with Jake's relationship with Tom. Jake waits until everyone is out of the house, and then he acquires a cockroach. And then he morphs into a cockroach because he's going to test out a morph before using it, which seems like a good idea. So Jake runs around as a cockroach, but then somebody's in his room, which is weird because everyone's supposed to be out of the house. And also the light and sound scare him as he's a cockroach. And then he gets stuck in a roach motel, which I don't actually know what that is, but they described it as like a cockroach trap. So he gets stuck in a cockroach trap. So then chapter 4, Jake is a human again, and he's talking with all the Animorphs, and he's talking about his roach adventure. He says he morphed back while behind the refrigerator, and he was like pushing the refrigerator out an inch at a time while he was morphing back. And the reason that he'd seen people in the house was because his parents had come home early, and his mom saw his human head poking out behind the refrigerator with the roach motel on his head, and it was all silly. Meanwhile, Tom has been calling doctors at this local hospital. The Animorphs figure that the Yeerks are using the hospital to infest patients. Then Jake has a nice dinner with his family where Jake kind of recaps more, but it's interesting because it's framed with like how Tom and Jake's relationship is working right now, because Tom's a controller and Jake's secretly like an animal morphing superhero man. So Tom tries to get Jake to join the sharing again. Jake has a mysterious dream, but he doesn't describe it. So then the others morph into roaches, and Jake talks to them for like an hour so that they can learn how to hear speech in cockroach form, because their plan is to like use this morph to like do spy things. And then Jake tells them about the dream, which is that Jake is like a tiger and he's hunting Tom, and it's really weird. But then midway through the dream, like Jake's POV switches to that of Tom's, and Tom's hunting Jake, and so he's like, it's all metaphorical and symbolic. So then Jake says that he's worried that if they sabotage Tom like their plan is, then Visser 3 will kill Tom, because Visser 3 has a terrible way of running things where he just kills anybody who does anything wrong. So the Animorphs decided just to do a spy mission for now so they don't have to kill Tom. So then they go at night to a sharing meeting as roaches. They crawl through the walls. Visser 3 shows up to the meeting, and he has a human morph, and he exposits to the meeting that they're going to infest people using the hospital, and they're going to infest the governor, who's going to run for president. So then they're going to have control of the governor and maybe the president. And the controllers notice the Animorphs, like all these roaches sitting around, and they try to stomp them. The others escape one by one. Jake is sprayed with bug spray, and he starts to die, but Tobias somehow saves him, even though I thought they were indoors, but whatever. Tobias puts Jake on top of a restaurant. Jake passes out and hallucinates, but demorphs while unconscious. Tobias tells Jake that Visser 3 and Tom look pretty close right now. They look like pretty tight buds. They think the hospital plan is all Tom's idea. So then they're like, oh, shoot, if we screw up this plan of Tom's, he's super gonna die, for sure, for realsies. So then Jake plays basketball at school, and it's like normal, kind of. But then Marco shows up, and he tells him that he lied to somebody. He like just called somebody who works with the governor and told them he was a reporter, and then he got the governor's schedule. So then he figures that the hospital's probably going to go to the hospital on Tuesday, so that's when their plan has to happen by Tuesday.
The governor's going to go to the hospital.
Yes, the governor will go to the hospital on Tuesday.
You said the hospital is going to go to the hospital.
Oh, the hospital's always at the hospital.
By the way, it's the Yeerk inside Tom making the plans, not like actual Tom.
Yeah, and like Visser 3 doesn't freaking care. He just kills humans as well, even though he has a morph that he can turn into that can suck Yeerks out of their heads, and then he could just not waste a good host, and also not have to explain away people dying. But whatever, he just is so angry that he kills them right away and their host. Anyway, Rachel helps Jake shop for his mom's birthday, and she's all like, "Ew, look at this sales! Wow, malls!" And Cassie's there too. Cassie explains to Jake that they're going to morph flies to get into the hospital. They morph flies. It's very gross. It's so gross that Rachel barfs while watching Cassie do it, and they use the word barf. But flying as a fly is fun. So then they jump on Tobias, who they refer to as a bus, and they flies into the hospital. Tow bus. Yes, they jump on the tow bus, and he flies into the hospital. They go through the window, and they get to a room with what they think is a Yeerk pool. And they being the flies, Tobias doesn't go into the window as a hawk. That would be stupid. Axe demorphs. It turns out there was a human in the room with them, but Axe just knocks him out like a badass. So they then morph back to human and find 100 Yeerks in a jacuzzi. But the jacuzzi isn't plugged in because it's just being used as like a tub to hold them. So then Jake is like, let's just kill them all. And he plugs in the jacuzzi and basically like overheats them to death. And bubbles them all. And 2 controllers show up, but Axe and Cassie turns into a wolf, and Axe is also just an Andalite, and they fight the controllers who showed up. And then Jake trips or something, and he falls face first into a jacuzzi. The Animorphs tear out of there, breaking things as elephants, gorillas, horses, etc. So all the Animorphs are back on the way. So Marco's holding Jake as a gorilla, and Jake's is all wiped out and delirious. Once they get Jake home, he's like, very dazed, I guess. But then he finds out he can't move on his own, and there's a mysterious voice in his head. It turns out one of those mind control slugs from the pool, from the jacuzzi, jumped into him. So then Cassie and Marco want to take Jake to a doctor. The Yerk is named Temrash. Some number, doesn't matter. His name is Temrash, that's what I'm calling him. Okay, I have to go. I have to go inside.
Cricketbing didn't sound happy about that. I heard him squawking.
Yeah. I like being outside too. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. So then Cassie and Marco want to take Jake to a doctor, but Tamrash, who now has control of Jake's body and voice, tells them that they can't because they might find out he's an Animorph. And Tamrash has Cassie and Marco convinced, but then Axe and Rachel show up, and Axe immediately sees that Jake is a controller because Tamrash makes a brief facial expression of disgust when he sees Axe. So the Animorphs decide to tie up Jake for 3 days. Jake is like, yay. Tamrash tries to convince them not to, but eventually just gets mad and calls Axe Andalite filth. They start walking to this shed Tobias knows of in the woods. Axe is going to pretend to be Jake for 3 days while they tie him up. Then they're in the shed. Tamrash. Then the rest of the book is basically just Temrash tormenting Jake in his mind with mind things. And it turns out this is the same exact Yerk that was in Tom's head up until now, when he was being assigned to take over the governor. So now Tom has a new Yerk. So then Tamrash tries to escape at night by turning into a tiger. But then it turns out that the Animorphs were in on it. They pretended to Rachel pretended to fall asleep so that Tamrash would try and escape. Then the Animorphs are all badass and are super competent at keeping him from escaping. And they have all these new morphs. And then Tamrash just kind of goes back to the shack and sits, and he's all sad because he's basically losing hope. And then he starts to die. And Jake sees all the Yerk's memories once the Yerk dies. After Tamrash is dead, Jake has control of himself again, so he uses Cassie's dad's cell phone and morphs partway to Wolf to disguise his voice, and then calls Tom and says, "Don't give up, Tom." The end.
Yay.
Sorry if that was a bit rambling, and I also had to get up halfway through.
It wasn't rambling. You just went into a lot of detail, which I don't mind.
All right, so I really loved this book.
Yeah, this book was great. I mean, I thought it was okay at first, but then, the whole thing with the Yerk, oh my gosh, that was good.
I think the Yerks are my favorite characters now because they were also my favorite part of the Visitor, and the reason I like the Visitor so much.
Yeah, man, the Yerks are great. That's why I didn't like the message, because it just made them look more evil.
Half this book is just about this creature starving to death.
Yeah, it's so metal. I love it.
This is a really sci-fi book. It's all sci-fi, but this book was more exploring the frontiers of human imagination type sci-fi.
Yeah, it was so cool.
What would it be like to not have your body? What would it be like to be sharing headspace with a creature who's starving to death because it can't get its alien nutrients after 3 days of being in your head and controlling you? It was neat. Okay, I'm going to start from the beginning, just because that's how my notes are organized. I liked how this book recapped things.
Yeah, this book, the recap was a lot more bearable in this book.
I wasn't it wasn't just enough about me. Let's talk about, it wasn't enough about the plot. Let's just talk about what was already happened for 2 pages. Yay. It was he would insert paragraphs of recap between the actual things that's happening, and it would relate to the things that's happening, which I thought was really great.
Yeah, in a lot of the other books, I mean, she kind of did that, but it would be there's 2 lines of dialogue in between the big recap things that would act as a transition between what the person is going to talk about next.
It would be Tobias shows up. Tobias is a hawk. He used to be a kid with dirty blonde hair. I used to save him from having his head shoved in toilets, but now he's a hawk. On the first day, he got trapped as a hawk. Morphing, you need to do it for less than 2 hours. Yes, that is what happened when the Animorphs, Elfangor showed up and gave us the morphing power. Hi, Tobias said. Tobias was using ThoughtSpeak. ThoughtSpeak is a thing you use with your brain, and you can only do it in Morph, but Tobias can do it because he's always in Morph, because Tobias got trapped as a hawk a few books ago, and he'll never turn back. He used to be blonde, but now he's not, because he's a bird. This book was good. It wasn't that.
Yes, it wasn't that. That was beautiful. How'd you do that? Wow.
I don't mind the recaps though.
You're so weird. You seem like you just disagree with things that
you're just disagreeing with us just for the sake of disagreeing.
No, I'm not. No, I like the old recaps. This one didn't seem thorough enough.
Oh my god!
Oh my
Well,
god.
here's the
I
thing.
just have
Here's the thing. We are adults reading these like twice a week. Like, kids, they like the grandma would like, oh, you like Animorphs? Here's this Animorphs book I found in my attic, and it's like book like 6 or whatever. You need a recap, like
this book tells you everything you need to know, certainly, and it's actually like interesting to read it. I feel like I'm reading a textbook when I'm reading the other recaps. Here's one part of the way that they were expositing or recapping, I suppose, that I really liked. Where Jake's having a nice dinner with his family. He's talking to Tom about dumb things. He's just playing the part, and so is Tom, of course. And Jake is staring at Tom's head at one point, and he says, "Anyway, I asked Axe about how the Yerk slug lives in a person's head. He'd explained it to me, how they can flatten their slug-like bodies, how they can sink between the crevices and cracks of a person's brain, how they melt like a liquid into every available space, how they wrap their bodies around a brain and attach their own neurons to human neurons."
This is definitely the first book where they like explain all the stuff that you've already like said. Oh yeah, the Yerks can read your minds and stuff like that. This is the first time it actually says that, and I don't think Applegate really thought of it until this point.
Yeah, probably not.
Well, I mean, I don't think at any point the books were like, "Oh, you can tell you're a Yerk because you could just ask the person what their favorite color is, and if they can't answer, you're a Yerk."
Yes.
We might get to this later. I don't know, but anyway, there's this scene where they're talking about Jake. Jake is like basically a really normal scene where Jake is having dinner with Tom, and Tom is like calling him names, and Jake is like saying they're just poking fun at each other. But obviously Jake's not having fun because he knows what's up. But then later, when Tom's Yerk is in Jake's brain, Tom's Yerk shows Jake the memory of that same interaction through Tom's eyes, and it's really cool because it shows how Tom sees Jake. And it also like has some dialogue from the real Tom in his own head.
It was just as I remembered it, except that now I felt Tom's emotions, not mine. The real Tom. The true Tom who was crushed beneath the Yerk's control. He was crying, sobbing, helplessly, silently. "Not Jake," he cried. "Leave Jake alone. Leave my brother alone. Look, I'll never trouble you again. I swear it. Just leave Jake alone."
I think that I could see like why that's the same guy who in the first book, when he was free for like a few minutes, immediately just started like charging at Visser 3 with his fists.
Well, see, okay, now it explains that Tom definitely knew what was going on when he was in the Yerk pool, because he was watching all of it. So he was definitely like, "Oh, Visser 3, okay, I hate this guy. I know who he is."
There's a part in this book where like Visser 3 is like giving a speech or something to like the Yerk controllers or something in the hospital, because they like control the whole hospital. And then the Animorphs are there as cockroaches. And some guy's like, "Hey, there's some cockroaches here." And then someone else is like, "No, it's okay. Cockroaches are everywhere." And then Visser 3 is like, "What are you, stupid? The Andalites probably. Someone killed that guy." And then like someone just like shoots that guy who like said, "Oh, it's okay." They just like shoot him with a gun.
Yeah.
Usually in kid stuff, at least in TV shows, they don't let you show someone getting killed with a gun. Definitely.
I mean, like, Applegate didn't describe what it looked like. So maybe that's why she thinks it's okay. But it's just so weird, dude.
A lot of stuff gets censored just for having guns if it's meant for children.
Or like killing anyone. You can't just kill people in kids' books. You can't kill innocent people in kids' books. Like
in the 90s, they could.
What did I miss? Hello.
Oh, when they're spying, and they're cockroaches, and then some guy is like, he makes a decent mistake. He's like, "Oh, those are cockroaches. Those are just fine. The cockroaches are everywhere." And then Visser 3 is just like, "Kill that guy." Obviously, they're Andalites.
Do you think Andalites cannot morph featured creatures so small? Someone kill this fool for me. That's like I said, this is a terrible leadership strategy. Like, you're wasting good hosts, and also like people like was pointed out in the message. Like people just aren't telling Visser 3 what they think because they're worried that he'll kill them. So like some of them suspect that the Animorphs are humans, but they're just not doing anything about it because they're worried about Visser 3 just killing them, because he's like, "That's stupid," and then he kills them.
I mean, yeah, all the Vissers are like bad leaders. Like the Visser 1 just like let the Animorphs go.
Yeah.
How do you become a Visser? Like, do you
have to be greedy and ruthless.
It's making me think like whatever their criteria is, it's not good.
You have to be really mean. That's it.
They just do that, that test where like, that psychological test where like they try and see how much how hard you'll shock people before you.
Oh yeah, the Milgram.
They just let whoever will do the most shocking be the Visitors. Oh, and secondly, this is a bad strategy because now Visser 3, he has a morph. He could like totally execute. I'm sure he has the power to like execute these people when he on his own time and everything, but he just chooses to kill them on the spot. He's in like downtown, and now he's got a human body he has to dispose of, and also I have to explain this human body's like absence from its life. Like, how are you, dude? This is a terrible strategy.
He drowned.
While I was looking for this quote, I found this part that I really liked, and it's just stupid, but I really liked it. How can you ever run in these bodies? He's a human morph. Axe wondered. 2 legs? It is absurd. 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 Not even a tail to help you stay up. You know, Axe, now that you mention it, Marco started gyrating wildly like a guy out of control. I only have 2 legs. I'm falling. See, I knew it must happen sometimes, said Axe.
I love that joke.
Yeah.
I like the part where like all the little flies jump on Tobias, and the Tobias is like, "Oh man, it's glad I know you guys because it's like my own little necklace of houseflies. It's enough to gag a maggot." Then Marco's like, "Gag a maggot? Hey, don't diss our kids like that."
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. I think I've finally uncovered the reason why Applegate just really wants Tobias to be a hawk, because in this one he's definitely like their chauffeur. And he definitely has the role of like, oh, are we safe? Tobias, go up and check the premises. And he's like, yep, we're safe. Because they would not have an easy way to do that, like every single time.
I'm kind of, this made me wonder because like they all 4 went in as roaches to spy on the Yeerks, and then they all 4 almost got killed. I mean, 5. Wait, yeah, 5. 5 of the morph capable Animorphs almost got killed as roaches. Like, you don't need that many people to do that. You should have just had maybe 2. Because
oh no, not this argument again.
Well, no, listen. I was thinking like if Tobias could have morphed at that time, they probably would have just had him go along with them, and then nobody would have been able to save Jake because they would have just been like, let's all morph roaches, I suppose. Like, because would they have? If I was wondering, like, if Tobias wasn't stuck as a hawk, would they think, okay, let's have somebody morph a bird and keep watch outside? And
if only 2 of them went, that like, one of them could like get attacked by something, and then there would only be one. There's only be one person there to like help save him or something.
But it just made me wonder, like, okay, 5, sure, 5 of them went in, but like, if Tobias was still able to morph, would they have had him turn into a cockroach too? And then nobody would have been able to save Jake.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Knowing these kids now, they would not have thought of that.
Is it almost like a good thing for their strategy that Tobias got stuck as a hawk, or are they smart enough that they don't need that?
Definitely overall in the books a good thing that Tobias got stuck as a hawk.
Well, I mean, if they were smart, he wouldn't need to be stuck as a hawk because they would just have.
Yeah, but they're not smart, obviously.
They were pretty awesome in this book. Like once Jake's a controller and he's trying to escape, they were all suddenly really badass and competent.
So it's Jake's fault.
Yeah, that's true. But like, if anything, book 3 taught us that their plans aren't the best. So this is kind of on brand for them.
I like that they actually did do the whole thing I said like in episode 2 when I was like, hey, why don't they just tie someone up for 3 days? And
well, they can because it's Jake. Now they can.
And they could have Axe morph him. But they could technically do that with anybody, I guess. Like they could totally have Axe morph Tom.
No. They don't do that because Tom is already an established Yeerk. So then if the Tom Yeerk suddenly disappeared, the Yeerks would know, hey, the Animorphs, they're messing with Tom. The Animorphs must like know Tom well, and they like figure out.
Oh yeah.
Since Jake just became a controller, so like no one knows about him yet. They were able to.
Yeah. I like how the Yeerk was like fantasizing about like going in down and being like, Visser 3, here are all you Animorphs, and being super awesome, and it was just cute.
Oh my gosh, he was so cute. Oh, I don't know, like watching him die. I mean, he was evil and all, but like, oh my gosh.
Half this book was literally just describing this creature's stuff.
Jake and that Yeerk, they had such chemistry together. Like, oh, I want to hear these guys talk to each other all the time. This is great.
They were riffing off each other by the end.
They were.
Jake was like, haha, isn't that funny that you got beaten up by an owl? And then he's like, shut up. It's like, aw, these two.
Sorry.
That's all. I think that's all I have to say. I will read this quote. When where Temrash morphs into a wolf in order to because wolves have a natural sense of direction, so he morphs into a wolf, to get out of the woods and get to Visitor 3. But the Animorphs also morph wolves, and I like this nice bit of reincorporation here from the third book where Jake's wolf morph is an alpha male, and so the Animorphs morph wolves and they howl, which gets the other wolf pack, which we saw in the other book that Tobias mistook for the Animorphs that one time. That gets them to show up, and then the Yeerk is basically defeated by his actual wolf because he's an alpha male wolf, and the other alpha male wolf doesn't want another alpha male wolf in there. So then Jake says, "Go kick his butt. Of course, it's a real wolf there, an alpha male, leader of his pack, which means he's probably been in a dozen fights and won them all. Go on, Yeerk. Tell him how the Yeerks are masters of the galaxy. I'm sure he'll be very impressed."
Yeah, that was great.
Because the Yeerk had gone on a whole rant before about how the Yeerks are the best and everything.
So when Jake, I don't remember how it happened. So Jake fell face down into this jacuzzi that was filled with Yeerks, and that's when the Yeerk crawled in his pain, and all the other ones died. And when he fell face down in the pool, I was like, "What? Aren't the Yeerks?" It seems like the Yeerks could crawl in his head, but I didn't think it was actually going to happen. And the Yeerk crawled in his head. I was like, "Whoa, this is a cool book. It's controlled by a Yeerk," and
Yeah.
I thought it was possible that whoa, what if the next 5 books is just Jake is a Yeerk, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, that'd be pretty neat. One thing I didn't like was it seemed to go pretty fast when Axe seemed to figure out pretty quickly that Jake was a controller.
Yeah, but
and then maybe this isn't really something I didn't like because I thought Alpagate was just going to linger on that for a long time, ooh, they don't know that Jake is a controller, but Jake is a controller, and he's trying to scream and be like, "Oh no!" But they don't know it yet, and oh no, look at what they're gonna do. But she did that for a chapter, and then nope. Okay, they figured it out.
I think it made sense because Jake just fell face first into a pool of mind control slugs, so of course Axe is gonna be looking out to see if he's being mind controlled.
I actually do kind of think this is better now that I think about it, because otherwise it would have been really boring and dull.
You can maybe tell if someone's a Yeerk if you're really looking for it, but most people aren't looking for that. So,
well, it only gave him away because he seemed disgusted by the Andalite, and that's the only reason they knew. When Jake saw Tom show despair for a brief second,
and then the Yeerk makes a point of being "I'll convince them that I'm you anyway," and he's like, "See, Cassie's the weak link here because I'll just try and play to her emotions," and she was kind of looking doubtful.
I thought it was so cool that Applegate because she hasn't really explained that much about how the Yeerks work, and instead of just telling us it, she wrote a whole book with just 8 chapters with just this kid being infested by a Yeerk and going through everything that's like. And
I love the experience of being a controller that was written at it. Really made me feel yeah, this sucks. This is awful. I wouldn't be able to take this for 3 days, much less a lot of my life. Jesus, think about Tom, and and think about Jake is he gets depressed after an hour, and think about Tom and Chapman and whoever in Visitor 3 and anyone who's been a controller for
oh my gosh! At the end where it was Tom is just wishing for death.
Yes, they said he was wishing.
Oh, you're just gonna say that, okay?
He spent every moment wishing he could die.
That was rough, dude.
Jake and Tom is saying I'll never. We already read this quote, but he was I'll never trouble. He was just crying whenever Tom starts trying to get Jake to join the sharing, and I was just thinking this is a regular thing. Tom gets to try to get Jake to join the sharing every book he narrates, so this happens every time. And he just has to hope that Jake will be and then Jake's trying to act like a stupid, cool little 13-year-old who's too cool to join the sharing.
Oh, yes. And Tom still doesn't know that, he doesn't know that Jake is an Animorph or whatever, so he doesn't know that Jake knows not to join the sharing.
He just thinks that Jake is oh, whatever, I'm busy playing Doom. He just has to hope that Jake doesn't feel open to his brother's suggestions someday. He has to hope that Jake doesn't trust him.
He has to hope that he was enough of a dick to Jake in the past that it'll carry over to Jake just not caring about him.
Yeah.
And what the controller says. Oh my gosh, it's so deep.
Yeah.
I explain exactly how the controllers work, because I don't think we exactly said this. So once they infest you, they can read all your memories, and they control like all your bodily functions. And also the Yeerk can like thought speak to you. You can thought speak to it, but only the Yeerk can like actually speak out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool that like they can talk to each other like in Jake's body, but only the Yeerk can control it. Weird.
I like that. Here's some description. I wrote down some descriptions of what it was like to be a controller. I wanted to tell them both, Cassie and Marco. I wanted to tell them both to scream. They have me. They are inside me. But I couldn't make my mouth move. It was like there was a roadblock. Like I could form the thoughts, give the order to my lips and tongue to speak, but the order never got there.
Oh, there was a cool moment where the Yeerk was talking as Jake, and he said something that like sounds like something Jake would say. And even though the Yeerk said it, I thought it was an interesting quote. I'm never happy when any creature has to be destroyed, but I don't feel any pity for those Yeerks. They are to enslave us. We did what we had to do. Talking about how they killed like all the Yeerks in the jacuzzi. Because they like kill a lot of creatures in these books, but it's like, yeah, no, these are like parasites. They have to be killed, and I don't like killing creatures, but you know, we have to.
Yeah, and then Jake's all like, "Wow, that's exactly what I would have said."
Yeah,
which I thought was cool.
This book seems to have a lot of empathy for the Yeerks. We Yeerks evolved as parasites, not predators. Unlike you humans, we did not kill to eat. We were peaceful. We took many different species as our hosts. As they evolved, so did we. So they're just like, yo, you humans are worse than us, you know.
Yeah.
Previous books didn't really have that. They just painted Yeerks as these horrible creatures. And this one's saying, listen, you're worse. Go away.
Dude, you need this freaking planet to live, and you're still destroying it.
Oh, what is that?
What, Kurgabing's back?
What?
It's not bad anymore. We fixed it.
What did you think about this book, Kurgerbing?
I liked it, but I also didn't like it.
Dude, while I was reading this, I was like, man, I wish the titles of these books were more descriptive, because, like, what's this book called? Like, The Capture or something? Yeah, The Capture. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. These books have so much, like, differences.
I like that they aren't like that.
You can give them meaningful titles, then people will be drawn in, but I kind of like that they didn't spoil what the book's about, because I had no idea Jake was going to get infested by a Yeerk until it happened, basically.
I feel like there's a way to come up with more captivating titles that like fit with what happens without giving away the whole thing.
Captivating. Capture. Laugh.
So yeah, I do wish they would. That's true. I do wish they were a little bit better, because these titles just suck.
They're the signature Animorphs titles. You know, what would Animorphs be without its two-word titles?
Every title has to have the in the beginning of it.
The cover does say now he's one of them, so that kind of gives it away if you know it.
Well, I guess if you looked at this at this book, you might think that like flies are the enemy, and he's like turning into a fly. So, now he's one of the flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's one of the evil flies. That's what these books are.
By the way, I actually really like this cover.
Jake's got a really weird pose. He's like doing the hokey pokey. He's like square dancing.
Look at his pouty face.
He's got his lips.
Wait, so Jake has dark hair, but Tobias is light hair.
Yes.
I always picture Tobias is dark haired and Jake is light haired.
Yeah.
So I figured Jake would look like Rachel because they're cousins, right?
I just pictured Jake as a blonde the whole time. I don't know why.
Yeah, me too.
Talking about like having the Yeerks be like sympathetic or whatever the correct word is. There's a part where like Cassie, the Yeerk was like dying. It had like an hour left or whatever, and Cassie was like holding, because going through the last hour or so of like the Yeerk dying. When that happened, you start like seeing like all the Yeerk's memories like flash in your mind. You can sense like all the emotions and pain that the Yeerk is feeling, and like it has felt through all its life.
By the way, Jake can like feel the Yeerk can read Jake's thoughts, but Jake can't read the Yeerk's thoughts, but he can feel its emotions like all the time.
There's a part that I liked when like Cassie like holds Jake's hand to like help him feel better, and it was like, yeah, the Yeerk accepted that because he really wanted some comfort.
The Yeerk squeezed her hand back, didn't he?
It did.
Yeah, that was so cute. Oh my gosh.
Wait. So you ship Jake and the Yeerk, but not Jake and Cassie.
You mean Cassie and the Yeerk?
Cassie and the Yeerk, yeah.
No, I shipped Jake and the Yeerk. Totally.
Yeah.
Hey, this relationship is really abusive, and I just wanted you to know it's not okay.
Yeah, we don't support abusive relationships here. Come on.
I'm kidding.
I want to talk about You might have already talked about this, but I want to talk about the hospital. I want to share my thoughts on the hospital. I think that's a cool concept. I really like what they did with that. It was a smart way for them to spread.
Yeah, because people are unconscious. I mean, people are like alone with doctors a lot. Makes total sense.
And they could possibly get someone more powerful, too.
At the beginning, when Jake's parents come home early, it's because like Jake's dad twisted his ankle. So I'm like, oh my gosh, is Jake's dad gonna have to go to the hospital, and is he gonna become a controller?
Oh,
But then that didn't happen. So I was like, oh, okay. What I got from this is a lot better, I think.
yeah, that would have been kind of a silly plot, I guess. It was just try and keep Jake's dad from being a controller, I suppose. I didn't even think about that though at all, though.
Don't go to the hospital. Whatever you do, do not go to the hospital. You will live like this for the rest of your life. Don't go.
Yeah, dang. What if they get injured or something? Well, I guess they could just morph.
Yeah.
But, like, what if anybody they know gets injured? What happened? What if Melissa twists her ankle when she's doing gymnastics?
Take them to a different hospital.
I like how they kind of just forget about that plot after Jake becomes a controller because that's more important. So I don't know. Maybe they did end up infesting the governor, but I don't know.
Well, it was in the news that the hospital did it shut down.
Well, actually, yeah, a bunch of zoo animals did show up and trash the place. So,
did any of the Yerks or did any of the controllers see Jake as a human? I feel like they should have, and then I feel like that should have made them suspicious. Really.
I don't. Well, no, it makes sense that an Andalite would have morphed into a human in order to like operate the human machinery, I guess, and to not look out of place.
Yeah, I like how this Yerk was the only one who knew that they were actually humans morphing, and then they like kept that a secret still. Like somebody found out, but then they killed him. Dude, they just killed someone. It was like
Yeah, they did.
gory and
They made him
disturbing.
start, and they described that they described that his death is awful. Like he says, I was watching his pain from far away. I was an observer, close enough to know what he was feeling none of it myself. At first, it was a wave after wave of pain, starvation and death by thirst, all rolled into one agony.
Yeah, an axe cut some dude's hand off.
He does.
That's like a human being. You just cut his hand off, but
Didn't he do that in the last book?
I think he like fed it to him.
No, he just like I think he just broke somebody's. Like in the last book, he did disarm somebody, but I don't think he cut their hand off explicitly.
Can I read like a page that I was confused by? And I think maybe being actual shouldn't say anything. This is at the end, like when the Yerk is like starving to death in his final moments.
Oh, I do know. I think I know what this is.
Yeah, and this was really weird, and I liked it. The Yerk was no longer in pain; it was beyond pain. I opened my eyes and looked at Cassie. It happened so naturally. I opened my eyes by my own will. I don't know how she knew, but I guess she did. She nodded slightly and met my gaze. For the first time in more than an hour, the Yerk spoke. So, you win, human. The Yerk shuddered. I could feel it. A physical spasm. My vision changed. It's hard to describe. I felt as if I was seeing through things, into things. Like I could see the front and back and top and bottom and inside of everything all at once. Then I saw it. A creature. Or a machine. Some combination of both. It had no arms. It sat still, as if unable to move, on a throne that was miles high. Its head was a single eye. The eye turned slowly, left, right. I trembled. I prayed it would not look my way, and then it saw me. The eye, the blood-red eye, looked straight at me. It saw me. It saw me! No, no! I cried in silent terror. I looked away, and when I opened my eyes again, all I saw was a weird glow. The glow faded little by little. I was trembling. It's over, Jake, Cassie said. I rose slowly to my feet. I moved my legs. I was in control of myself again. I looked down, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that got me really excited.
I look forward to find out more about this giant eyeball on top of this throne. Whatever, this weird vision Jake had, whatever it was.
So did he like watch when the Yerk went to hell and then that was like Satan?
That's an interesting thought. I like that theory.
Or is it like something on the Yerk planet?
Yeah, and I wonder if like every person who has a Yerk inside them die. I wonder if they all go through that. Like, it was interesting.
Yeah. I
assume Be Natural can't really talk about that without spoiling stuff.
No, I won't say anything about it. I like your guys' discussion. It is good.
So, unless we have any more speculation, I guess we'll just move on from that.
I noticed they're done introducing people, so would that mean that we're in a new arc of the story?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, but I feel like they might still introduce people, kind of like.
I feel like the introductory arc's over.
Yeah, like I have a feeling we might get a book written by Axe at some point. But yeah, this book definitely seemed different than the first 5.
I didn't think about that at all.
It didn't prepare me at all for Jake to get freaking controlled like that. I don't like that. It scared me. I liked it though, but I didn't.
Yeah.
See, I had mixed feelings for this book because I liked it and I didn't like it.
It definitely went in a way that I didn't expect it to go, but I did like where it took me.
One part I really liked, just because of how silly it was, is after Jake is no longer in control of the Yeerk, he like realizes like how afraid Tom is of the Yeerks and how worried he is. So he just morphs into a half wolf, because turning into half a wolf like disguises his voice because he doesn't sound like Jake anymore and he has this deep wolf voice. He just calls up Tom on the phone.
On Cassie's dad's cell phone, because it's impossible to trace that back. They live in an era with like what are they called? Payphones on the street, and they didn't think of that. They're like, oh, let's just use Cassie's dad's phone.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
And then Tom says,
They couldn't do half morphs.
I think he just like started morphing, and then he just like quick made the call and said, "Hey, it's gonna be okay. Don't give up hope." And hung up.
I think he just like, I don't think he necessarily like he for all we know, he could have tried morphing like a dozen times before it worked the way he wanted.
Yeah, he had to hang up quickly, else he would keep morphing, and then he'd start peeing all over on the phone.
Can we talk about like just before Jake sees that weird eye thing, and while the Yeerk is dying, its mind disintegrates, and then Jake says that he feels like the Yeerk's consciousness kind of has been permanently transferred to him, and as well as his previous controllers, including Tom. He feels like part of the Yeerk's previous like a computer transferring a document onto a floppy disk. I realized part of the Ged and part of the Hork-Bajir had been transferred permanently to the Yeerk. And to my shock, I knew that those parts were now being transferred to me. And then the memories I feared the most, Tom.
Yeah, we got a lot of cool Yeerk lore. How like when they like absorb the memories of the people that they're controlling, that they like make like a permanent imprint on them.
I saw him scream as he realized what was happening. I felt his fear. I felt his rage as the Yeerk slug crawled into his ear and wrapped itself around his brain. I felt every ounce of despair, and like the Ged and the Hork-Bajir, this human, my brother, became a part of me. So I really like that. And I feel like I don't know if I feel it was probably intentional. It kind of tied in with like Jake's dream that he was having, where he was like stalking Tom, but then at the end Tom and he switched roles. It was like, oh, that's kind of like how he and Tom are now kind of connected like that. Sort of foreshadowing. And he has that dream like throughout this book. He has the dream over and over again. I thought that was a cool detail. I really love stuff about like consciousnesses and how they work, and like what is a person? It's just a person's just their patterns of thoughts, right? So like if the patterns of Tom's thoughts lived in this Yeerk in a way, and now the Yeerk's gone, but the patterns of thoughts are in Jake, like does that not mean that Tom is kind of living in Jake? And I just thought that was very cool, and I love thinking about that stuff.
Yeah, and Applegate's not afraid to go there.
Oh, that was my favorite part of the book.
Okay, but then she had to ruin it by being like, oh, but there's no memory of love. I guess Yeerks don't do love. Yep, guys, Yeerks are not capable of love. They're capable of anger and sadness and pain, but no, not love.
They had like pride too. They were like proud of like the accomplishments and everything. They had like a positive feelings.
Well, I'm saying it's not that they don't have positive emotions. It's that they don't have love. Like they don't care for each other.
Yeah, I think in like episode 2, Joe was like, "Oh yeah, Yeerks can't love," and then Be Natural was like, "No, I think Yeerks can love," and like it literally says they can't love. I thought that was
Well, no, just
I thought that was upsetting. I like the idea of Yeerks being able to love.
yeah.
Maybe he was just asexual.
Yeah, maybe it was just this one, you know.
Yeah, Jake was kind of stupid. He was like, "Oh, this one, there was no memory of love. I guess Yeerks don't do love. I met this one guy who never loved anyone, and so I guess the entire species is incapable of loving anybody." Like, you don't know that, dude.
That's a good point.
I like how he described that most of the emotions he felt were alien. I thought that was neat. I wonder if Jake's might be capable of like sympathizing with the Yeerks more now than anybody who isn't a controller, just because he's felt those emotions that are alien, or he's observed them, I suppose.
One line in the book that I thought was dumb is, I think it was Jake who was like, "Oh yeah, I'm having all these dreams, but dreams don't mean anything. They're just dreams." And it's like, dude, You literally found an Andalite because of dreams. Like, dreams aren't meaningless in this world. I mean, sure, they weren't actual dreams. They were like telepathic like messages being sent to you, but like this could be the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
Dreams, stupid.
I would love it if the Animorphs are like begin every book by describing their dreams to each other, and like 99% of the time it's just really stupid dream stuff.
When Marco dreamt about watching TV at his house.
Yeah.
Who dreams that?
I dream that. I had a dream where my dad really liked Invader Zim, and I was really surprised because my dad definitely wouldn't like Invader Zim.
Okay, but that's different than watching TV.
I had a dream where it started watching TV and then it ended with me saving the world.
Maybe Marco had that dream, but he was like, well, my dream started with me watching TV and then we saved the world, so, that's how we should do it.
Hey, Kugabing, was there anything, what do you want to say? Because you just got here like halfway through. You can talk about any part of the book.
Let me think.
If you don't have anything, that's fine too.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay.
One thing that I thought was a really cool bit of parallelism was X was like, at some point he was like, oh, being different animals is cool. What when the Andalites come back, we're gonna hang out on the Earth and just like try out different morphs just for the fun of it.
That's so adorable. I love thinking about it.
It was really cute. But then the Yeerk says the same thing later on. He's like, oh, when the Yeerks take over, we're going to keep around some of the animals so that we can like get into them and then test them out and have fun with their bodies. And then Jake's like, what? No, that's horrible. Why would you do that? So that was kind of interesting, that just the comparison between like morphing and like controlling random animals.
Yeah. X is kind of a sociopath here a little bit because he's like, oh yeah, I just hate Yeerks. I just hate all of the Yeerks, and I hate them because they're Yeerks, which is like understandable, of course.
The characters seem to think that it's cool that the Andalites just have this huge, overwhelming hate for Yeerks, and they just like start shaking when they think about Yeerks. And like that just doesn't seem healthy, dude. Why are you glorifying that?
When Jake starts saying when Temrash makes Jake say I'm never happy with any creature has to be destroyed, that's in response to something Axe says, where Axe is like, at least we just murdered 100 Yeerks, yay. And he's really like, yes, great, that's good. We boiled a bunch of 100 sentient creatures to death. That's good. And I'm just like, yeah, man, Axe is a sociopath to Yeerks, and so are the other Animorphs to an extent, because they did flip the switch and boil them all to death. On Cinnamon Bunza, they were like, Jake, what? Why would you do that? They were like, you shouldn't have done that, Jake. They were just sitting there in their pool, and I don't know. I'm like, what? I don't know what.
I was pretty happy when he did that.
Whoa.
Yeah, they're trying to take the military.
Guys, the whole point is that they're defeating the Yeerks. What are they going to do? Just not kill them?
They could have brought a plastic bag like you take to the aquarium. I mean, to the pet store when you buy a fish, and they could have just plopped them all in there, and then they could have given them a good home at Cassie's barn.
Exactly. They call it the Yeerk Ranch.
Yeah, they could open up a Yeerk Ranch for.
They make a deal. They make a deal with the Yeerks. All right, we'll just let you live at the ranch. Out at the ranch.
Not so bad a day, Axe said. How many Yeerks were in that pool? How many survived those temperatures? Only you, by getting inside Prince Jake. How many of your pool fellows died today? So Axe is just super happy about murdering all these dudes. And then but then Jake makes a point about how Temrash says the thing about I'm never happy when any creature has to be destroyed. So it's like Temrash is acting like less of a sociopath than Axe. And then Cassie specifically like starts questioning whether Jake is a controller because of that, because she kind of likes what Temrash said more than what Axe said.
Well, Temrash only said that based on like how he knew Jake would respond. It wasn't like a thought from Temrash's. Like, I don't think Temrash necessarily agrees with that.
No, even if he doesn't believe it, he still said it. I mean, he has a point. Yeah, Axe is pretty bloodthirsty about this whole thing, or Yeerk slime thirsty, whatever they have.
Oh, speaking of which, I also really liked when it was talking about like how the Yeerk remembers what it's like to be on the Yeerk homeworld, and Jake is watching that too.
I just loved the whole part about Jake living through the Yeerk. I love this book. When Jake gets, on a lighthearted note, when Jake gets back home, he's like, Tom says, like, you were just acting like a complete maniac, like eating just all the food and repeating all of your words. Because Axe morphed into Jake just while Jake was tied up in a shack for 3 days.
first Jake crawls behind the fridge and puts a roast mortella on his head, and then he's repeating words and eating a bunch of food, and they're just slightly concerned about him.
You know, middle schoolers. He's going through that phase.
Yeah.
So I'm still stuck on this part, but like when Stir was talking before about how like the Yeerk is like, oh, you know, humans are evil too. Like at least Yeerks don't kill to eat. He didn't mention what the paragraph after that, which was so Jake asked, "What about the Andalites?" I asked, "What happened when they came to your world?" "Of course," says the Yeerk. "The Andalite has not told you their story, has he? What a pity. It's such a fine story. Ask your pet Andalite Axe sometime. Ask him about the story of the Andalites and the Yeerks." "Maybe I will," I said. I hoped the Yeerk would keep talking, but he fell silent. So like that's also implying that Andalites are not the best either.
I can't say anything about that, but I like how he calls Axe his pet Andalite.
Yeah.
That's based on only information that he got from Jake's memories. So maybe Jake sees Axe as a pet in ways.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense with the whole mall thing. Jake, I would have a little less respect for Axe if I were Jake at that point. Cause I'd be like, dude, you know, get yourself under control. You got to be a human, remember? Like, if you just left your untrained pet into the store and then, yeah, they would act all crazy like that.
But Axe was really important in this book because he's the one who recognized that Jake was a controller. So it's like I feel like Axe kind of made up for that by being good at recognizing Yeerks, which makes sense.
Made up for that, but he just like by his past actions, he just made Jake think of him as a pet.
Miscellaneous note that I just see here. Tobias, when they're all cockroaches, Tobias says the urge to step on you is pretty strong. If I had shoes. I just like imagining Tobias with like giant sneakers. It's a good time.
Oh, did I say that I really like the description of when Jake gets sprayed with bug spray and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm dying."
Yeah.
Why haven't we talked about this yet? This is big. Jake like almost dies.
Yeah, as a cockroach. What a way to go.
And like he's like losing control of his. You know, this is like good foreshadowing because he's like losing control of his body parts and he's like, "Woo, woo, woo."
Oh, I didn't even think about that. This book is great.
He like can't focus because his brain is going all weird.
Yeah. Another miscellaneous note. Mustard, what do you have to say about Tobias wearing shoes? I noticed you were giggling when I said that.
I just thought it was a funny image.
I do like that image a lot. B-Ball today.
Tobias like can't walk without shoes. Like he can't stomp things with his claws.
Yeah.
It would be harder. His claws are all curved and stuff. I don't think bird talons are that fast when they're like just sitting there on the floor. Like he'd have to swoop at it, and even then,
You know how resistant cockroaches are?
Yeah, they're super hard to kill.
Cockroaches can resist like bomb blasts.
And why don't they just stay as cockroaches forever? Because then they could just like survive everything.
Except old age, they'd probably die in like a year. I don't know how long. By the way, Tobias doesn't have that long to live anymore anyway, either. He's probably going to die in like 20 years at most.
But don't hawks live like 20 years?
Yeah.
The hawk he morphed is probably pretty old. Wait, no,
I don't know how that works. I mean,
technically, wait, how do they know how old of the animal to morph into? Shouldn't they just turn into a baby animal?
That would be so funny. It would be like, oh man, now we can turn into tigers, and then Jake morphs a tiger fetus. He's like, wait, no man, baby, like there's always Animorphs babies.
That'd be popular in the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be so popular.
My thought is that the lifespan is just whatever your original body was, because that's still like who you are, really.
I would think that it would just morph into whatever. I would think based on what we know so far that you would just morph into like whatever age that's the analog to what your actual body is at right now. Like if I'm a teenager morphing into a hawk, I would morph into like basically like an adolescent hawk that can fly but isn't a total adult yet.
That makes sense.
Right, so if you morph into an old lady, would you morph into her when she was 12?
I think so.
That would be a great way to acquire morphs.
Yeah, that would be a great way to acquire disguised morphs, because like, you know, nobody's gonna say that looks exactly like that other person because that person looks old and you look young. I didn't even think about that. That's a good idea.
That does make me question though, like if they morphed into flies, why would they morph into adult flies? Wouldn't they be like pupae?
Maybe. There's a risk of that, but I don't know.
Dude, I just thought of something. Like, so the Andalite was somehow able to like get DNA of like all four of the Animorphs to like turn into a combination of the 4 humans. So like, would they be able to like get the DNA of like different animals and become like this super animal that's like a combination of like a bunch of strong animals?
Yeah, why doesn't Axe just teach him how to do that?
I guess we'll see, probably.
Or maybe that's what Megamorphs is about.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
My guess is that if they're like combining species, it might not turn out well. Like, how useful is a tiger going to be with a dolphin fin? You know,
They combine like a tiger, a bear, and a lion.
Oh my!
I don't know. I don't know if a combination of those will necessarily make it better.
What if you combined like a lion, a hawk, and a snake, and you made like a sphinx?
Yeah, but it's not going to be very. I mean, like,
I bet Cassie could figure out how to make what parts come and what parts to not come. I bet she could.
yeah, I guess the mind would mix though. That might be weird.
Oh, that would be weird. Maybe you like pick one of their minds. Another thing I was wondering was, so apparently Axe didn't have any morph of any other animal when he came to Earth, because it says the only morphs Axe had were like the cockroach and like the shark that he had before, and the human morph. So I'm like, wait, shouldn't he have like morphs from the Andalite home planet?
He was young and not like a warrior, so I'm guessing that Andalites by nature just don't really use morphs, and it's only when they're like fighting and stuff.
Well, how would he get skilled enough to like combine different DNA if he'd never morphed before?
I'm guessing that's just a thing that Andalites know how to do that Elfangor just didn't mention.
I guess. That's not that satisfying, but okay.
I guess we'll figure it out.
Oh, another miscellaneous quote that I liked a lot. Oh, goody, Marco said. Yes, goody, Axe said, totally unaware that Marco was being sarcastic.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I love it when those two talk.
There's a part where they're like making a plan or something, and someone's like, "Yeah, we're like we need to be together. We're like the 5 Musketeers." And then Axe is like, "What's a musketeer?" And then everyone just ignores him and keeps talking about the plan.
I felt bad for him there. I've been there. I'm like, who's that? And nobody answers me.
Yeah.
By the way, I posted a picture of Tobias with sneakers.
Very good. Thank you.
Good job crediting the... Oh, it's a watermark. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to crop out the watermark, and I thought, that's not right. I need to credit this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now it's going to look like Ron Dudley took a picture of a hawk with shoes on, and that's just hilarious.
That's a photo, yeah.
Yeah, this is this undoctored image. And Marco says he has a major urge to step on himself when he's a cockroach.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, was anybody else like really offended when they're like, "Oh, turning into flies is the worst thing ever"?
I guess it's no big secret that I kind of like Cassie. I think she's really pretty. But when I saw these big, 2 huge, glittering, bulging compound eyes come popping out of her eye sockets, I screamed. I mean, I screamed like a baby. Yeah!
Well, I was offended because I have a lot of OCs that have basically human-shaped heads and like insect eyes, and I think insect eyes look really pretty actually. So, I mean, maybe it's the movement that scared him. You know, like I don't know, if somebody's eyes started growing, I guess that'd be pretty freaky.
They just blew up like a balloon, and they still had like veins on them. I hate veins.
Do we have anything else to say about the book?
I liked it.
Let me get my joke book so it's ready.
Oh, I forgot about the joke book.
You gonna sign off first?
Yeah.
I'm Be Natural.
I'm better.
Psst. Psst.
Cougar Bang.
Someone carrying him away? What's the noise?
Wait, do you guys hear footsteps?
Yeah, it's Kurgabing being taken away. Okay, you're back. Sign out now. Welcome back.
Hello, I'm back. My name is Rubin. Goodbye.
I'm Mustard.
I'm Stir.
Okay, what do frogs order in restaurants?
Frog legs.
French flies.
Why would you say frog legs? What?
What does a human order in a restaurant? Like a pair of freaking legs, fresh chopped off of a human woman.
Jumpy hop jumpy hop log bits.
Frog spit. The ice cream.
Still, you got it. It's floppy. What did you say?
I said jumpy hoppy log bits.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, goodbye.
No, it's French flies.
It's weird that she's like sticking her butt out.
That's how you morph into a dolphin. You gotta stick your butt out so that it turns into a dorsal fin. Don't you know anything?
I guess I didn't know that.
Yeah, but based on this transformation, a butthole is on a fin. That's not how it works.
Listen, the
Her
butthole.
butthole would have had to shift way down.
No, the butthole can either morphing is weird. The butthole can travel through her body in the interior out and then out to her front, or it could like travel along her side.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.